Welcome back everyone to Genshin Interact. Today we're going to be looking at the 4 stars that are going to be on the next 2 banners on Nervalette and Kazuha's banners. Now, looking at these 2 characters, we already know that the 5 stars are absolutely amazing, and the entire Genshin community is already falling apart by just figuring out which character to go for, never mind looking at which character they should, put off to get Arlecchino in the future. And so this kind of puts a lot of people in a paradox, but we do want to look at the 4 stars and see the actual value of just this specific banner. Now, looking at the banner, the 3 characters we're going to be talking about are Yanfei, Xingqiu, and Barbara. Now, there's a few things we have to look at, right? The first is the characters themselves. Are these good characters to look at, and how should we focus on them, they themselves, right? Then we have to look at the characters on the actual banner and see pulling, ability for everybody. So, Rift, what do you want to talk? Which character should we, we talk about first between Yanfei, Xingqiu, and Barbara?
Well, I think we can talk about probably for some people, the elephant in the room, and that's going to be Xingqiu, just because I think he has the highest value of these 3 4-stars to have. Now, I know he comes around in the shop, and he's actually here right now, just a couple days before the next month. So if you are viewing this video before April, you can pick up a copy. If you don't have him, definitely highly recommend if you have enough Star Glitter to pick him up. If you don't, that's okay, because he will be on this banner, and this is a good banner to pull on. Nervalette, great DPS. Kazuha, great support. You really can't go wrong. So trying to get 1 copy Xingqiu, I recommend personally. I know not everyone would say that because pulling for a 4-star is risky, and yeah, I know. But that's how I feel, because that's what I personally do, right? I'm not going to recommend someone to do something that I wouldn't do myself. But Xingqiu, value as a 4-star, we actually did make a video on him about 3 weeks ago or so, because we thought he'd actually be with Chiori and Ito. So if you want, feel free to check that out, where we go really in depth with him, more so in that video. But overall, like I said, great 4-star character to have. Why is that though? Because off-field Hydra application, he's one of the best at that role. And I would even contend and argue that he's better at off-field Hydra application than someone like Yelan. That's very, very controversial, I know, and I'll get flamed in the comments for that. But as a Yelan haver, I feel that I can say that. And the reason I do say that is because he has the rain swords. Yelan has a lot of good off-field Hydra application, and she is better. So before people, rough me up for that, Yelan is better. I do agree with that. But some teams, I just find myself preferring Xingqiu over Yelan in certain teams, especially when they're Dendro-related teams. Like if I'm doing a Nilou Bloom team, or I'm doing a Hyper Bloom team, Burgeon team, I just really favor Xingqiu. And most of the reason for that is so that I can have my Yelan freed up for, say, the other side of the Abyss. But really, I just feel like the Hydra application is a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get Xingqiu's burst back. And yeah, you're losing personal damage, whereas Yelan has a higher damage ceiling, of course. That's just my personal take, though. So regardless of comparing with Yelan, even if you have Yelan, Xingqiu is a goated 4-star that you will never stop using, no matter even if you have all the characters in the game. Xingqiu, I think, still gets plenty of use, but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with everything you said. Having both Yelan and Xingqiu, I do think Yelan is a very good character, like you said, has a higher skill, or damage ceiling, but I think, like you said, it's way easier to get his burst back. Especially if a lot of people really use him for sacrificial, and so the sacrificial sword and at higher refinement makes it even easier to get a lot of his energy back, which then makes it, which makes him, get his skill back, which then makes him get his energy back, obviously, because he's doing more skills. And then he has energy recharge as a main stat. I think just everything in general makes him a lot easier of a character to use, as well as it's easier to get constellations for him, which makes him closer to Yelan the more constellations he gets from C0. So I think personally, Xingqiu is probably the best 4-star that you could get on this specific banner. Now, looking beyond that, the next character probably in terms of desire for a lot of characters or people that are playing should be probably Yanfei. Now, I've got a love-hate relationship with Yanfei, and I know, like you were going to get flamed for not like, or I guess not saying that you don't like Xingqiu, but saying that Xingqiu is actually better than Yelan in multiple instances.
Yeah.
I'm actually not a fan of Yanfei, and that's probably my hottest take that I could probably ever have in this game, I know. But I think there's just a lot of hype around her, and I think she's a goated pyro DPS, and I'm like, okay, if someone was going to ask me, what should I do? I'm trying to go for a pyro DPS on this specific banner, should I pull? I'm going to say no. And then it's going to be why. Okay, well, if you're a new character, okay, Kazuha's a great character. You know, you could throw Kazuha together. I mean, technically, you could get all 3 of these 4 stars and Kazuha, and then just have a goated 4-man team, right? Okay, well, let's think about this. So you've got the healer. You've got technically heals with Xingqiu. I mean, yeah, Xingqiu as well. And Kazuha is going to be able to swirl. And then you've got Vaporize, goated team. Problem is that if you're a new player, you don't have the necessary guarantee most likely to get the 5-star character. And even still, am I really going to tell you, like I've always said, go for DPS characters first and then build 4-star supports and then go for 5-star supports later on in the game. And so it's like, okay, well then you would tell a new character DPS first, right? Yes. Okay, then go for Nervalet's side of the banner. The issue with going for Nervalet's side of the banner is, once again, new players. Who are you going to have? You know, you have Kaya, you have Lisa, you have Barbara, already have Barbara on this banner, you have Xingqiu, and then you've got Nervalet. And you've got Tank Faye, Yan Fei, however you would use her. A lot of people would use her C4 for Tank Faye. Now, what would you really do? Okay, I wouldn't say to pull for this side of the banner either. As much as I love Nervalet, it's a great character, I would, if people are going to ask me for 4 stars, should you pull for this banner, I'm going to say no. But I think Nervalet's a great character in general, but Yanfei is just, she's a great character, she's a great DPS character that a lot of people can have fun with. But just as like I have a lot of fun with my Heizo, if Heizo was on this specific banner instead of her, I wouldn't tell people to go ahead and pull on the banner because of the 4 stars. Personally, it takes way too much investment to get Yanfei or Heizo to where they are. Yeah, I can hit a 180k in the Abyss, or if you guys watched a little bit of gameplay from one of the previous videos, I had my Heizo on field, but I had a stacked Bennett, I had a C6 Farazan with a high base attack that was giving him crazy amounts of stuff, especially on a 4-piece tenacity, so he was getting so many buffs, it's not even funny. So I think it's just the same thing with Yanfei. Now, I know, Rift, you have a completely different opinion, which is good. That's kind of the whole reason we do the back and forth between us two. So, Rift, I don't know, what are your thoughts on Yanfei?
Well, I can agree with you in a lot of senses that you shouldn't pull on a banner just for the 4 stars unless you're just well into the game or you just simply don't care. But, like, unless you're a veteran, it's just not worth it most of the time. Now, you can be lucky and that's great, but you can't bank on that happening all the time, right? You're not just gonna get your C6 4 stars, or it could take you an entire going to pity and getting the 5-star before you even get one copy of a 4-star. And it's happened. I've seen it happen to people. It's happened to me. So it's just not the smartest way of going about it. So like you're saying, it's more about the 5 stars. But also, like you're saying, I do have a different opinion on Yanfei as a whole. I think she's a very good character, but here's the catch, and this is somewhat still agreeing with you, is that she does take a lot of investment. And not just her. What I mean by that is the team takes a lot of investment. To make Yanfei's team actually contendable and usable for even floor 12 of the Abyss, you've got to have, like, S-tier support units, and on top of that have they're really well built, and you have really good artifacts, you've got really good weapons in there, or whatever. Like, you can't just, like, 1 month into the game have a goated Yanfei team, because usually you're having some 5-star supports in there. There's Kazuha, you know, there's several others. Yelan's going to be really good for her with the off-field Hydro, pairing her with Xingqiu, so getting that double Hydro, really making Yanfei's vapes consistent. Stuff like that is just a lot to consider to actually make Yanfei very powerful. But my point in saying that I think she's a good character is because I think her damage ceiling is very good for a 4-star DPS, just like Heizo. I know you brought Heizo up. Compared to a lot of other 4-star DPSs that just really, no matter what you do, can't hit that damage ceiling. Like, no matter what you do, Candace ain't gonna do that much compared to Yanfei or Heizo, right? So that's more or less what I mean when I say I value the 4-star. And I'm probably just biased because you know, Vixen, I have a thing for building and using my 4 stars. So maybe that's just that part of me kind of showing. But I think Yanfei is definitely very usable. And if you are a new player and happen to get her, if you are going on a spanner, even at C0, I think you can still use her if she's your only pyro option. Obviously, if you're using, like, you're going up against cryo shields or whatever, she's definitely going to be a good candidate for one of your teams.
Yeah, I do want to say out for the record that in general, she's a great character. Like, I mean, if you once again, if you just happen to have her and you're like, okay, I don't have a lot of pyro characters, I didn't lose a 50 and get a D-Luke, or I don't have a Hu Tao, or I don't have Gaming even, who came out recently, who's in my personal opinion, better than Yanfei in terms of damage. At
Hmm.
least it's easier as well to actually do a lot of things with less investment, as well as I think his ceiling is better too.
Yeah.
So I think that, in general, if you have these other characters, I would build them first. I would focus them first. But if she is your only pyro character that's, a damage dealer on your account, I wouldn't say to back away from her. Or if she's your only damage dealer on your account, heck, for instance, then I would say that, building her is not necessarily bad. She's got a great burst, she's got a good skill, her normal attack, she's a catalyst, so the pyro is always coming out constantly, so you don't have to worry about cryo shields as much as characters like even Hu Tao or whatever, who, you maybe just how things work out. Maybe all of a sudden you're already halfway through your skill phase and all of a sudden something pops up and has a cryo shield on it. Well, then you've got to wait for that skill to come back so that you can use pyro, And so I don't know. Personally, I think she's a great character. I just, especially for this specific banner, it is just a hard just pass on that. But finally, just going to the last character is Barbara. Now, I don't know. I haven't heard people talk about Barbara in a very long time. I think the last time I heard somebody even say Barbara's name was talking about like hitting a crazy number because of something that happened in the game, whether that was Ocean Hued Clam or whether that was I don't even know. But I know that
I think you might be talking about like a meme build Barbara where they did a plunge attack. And
yeah,
did, like,
people do like crazy
Barbara or
plunge,
something like that.
they just do really weird, funny stuff. Like go into the lower floors of the abyss, like 8 and below, and level 90 everything, and then go in there and have a 3 million hit or whatever with Barbara. But personally, as a character, she's a really good healer, especially for an early game player. I know a lot of people are gonna tell you, especially like later game players, are gonna be like, Barbara's bad, Barbara's trash. Don't listen to them. Use Barbara. She's a very good healer. Her skills is very nice, especially if she can be on field and off field healing. Her burst is a huge hit of healing. She's a healer all the way around and just very easy to play with. And so I would say that if you have her and she's your only healer, or maybe she's one of your 2 healers, I would still try to throw her in some of your rotations that you have. Now, looking at constellations, because I believe everybody gets a Barbara at the beginning of the game, because that's the only reason that you would be getting this, is Barbara's constellations are pretty good. I think especially with the C6, it's very similar to Chi-Chi's, is that you get to heal a character for free, basically, I think every 15 minutes or something crazy. So, I don't know, what are your thoughts about this specific character?
Now, I will say, to add on to everything you've just said, which I totally agree with, at this point in the game, way later on, now that we have Dendro, I think that really opened up a lot of options for Barbara, especially for the free-to-play players, right? Because the person that she's compared to a lot is Kokomi. Kokomi's basically the 5-star version of Barbara with a little bit of extra damage sprinkled on top if you're using Ocean Hued Clam, or, and her heals are just going to be better and more consistent. My point in bringing that up, though, is from my personal experience, and I rebuilt my Barbara when Sumeru dropped, because I found out she's just got a lot of great utility as the on-field driver in really any Dendro-related team where you want consistent hydro application. She's a catalyst, so you don't ever have to worry about not having the hydro application if she's your driver. So like for Nilou Bloom teams, where usually you'd use, if you're using on-field Kokomi for the hydro application, which Kokomi can get a different story there though, because she does have off-field hydro, which allows you to be a little bit more flexible, but in the sense that like Barbara is just, she's a free character, like you stated. Everyone's going to have Barbara if you play the game. If you have just one Dendro character, and Kale, hey, we know Kale's free from getting up to a certain level in the Abyss. I think it's like floor 4 or something, maybe a little bit higher than that. But you can get a free Dendro character. Now you have a pretty nice synergy with being able to bloom, because Kale is a good off-fielder. You can do her burst from off-field, right? So just having that, and then you just throw something else in there, either an off-field pyro character like Xiangling, even if you don't have Toma, you got yourself a nice 4-star Burgeon lineup right there. Or hey, if you have Kuki, and maybe it's not Kuki, maybe you have Fischl, Beto. Beto's, maybe I shouldn't bring her up, because from my experience, she doesn't really hit the cores very well. But my point is, Barbara is really good for Dendro teams as the on-field driver. So if you don't have Kokomi, and that was a lot of the reason people wanted to get Kokomi, because she was kind of indirectly buffed by Dendro in a sense, being able to be useful for a lot of those teams. My point is just Barbara can do all of that. And so I just think she can be a really, really great character for that. And none of that requires any constellation. So even though she's on the banner, you don't have to worry about even getting her because, once again, she's free. You'll have her. Maybe this is just an extra tip, right? So that's just my opinion. I rebuilt my Barbara as 4-piece Flower of Paradise Lost. She was EM build. And from my experience, I really like her in Nilo Bloom teams and all the other types of Dendro teams.
Well, I think that's looking at all the different characters and kind of looking at each of their strengths and some of their weaknesses, especially looking at these, these two banners. Personally, I would say that at the end of the day, looking at everything that we've kind of gathered, obviously, if you're going for these 2 5-stars, I think these characters in general, the 5 stars are just goated to go for. I think the 4 stars are more or less the cherry on top that we're looking at. I think if you're going for Kazuha or you're going for Neverlet, you should go for them. And, obviously both characters are going to be extremely good to progress you at any part in the game that you're at. They're going to progress you farther than you've ever imagined. Neverlet's a very, very, very good DPS, as well as Kazuha is going to open up the ability to make that Viridescent usage even better than you ever thought before. But besides that, these characters in general, the 4 stars, you've got Xingqiu, who's probably your best bet and probably the one that you're going to want the most constellations on. Yanfei, who could be very good for a lot of early game players, and even if you get that C4 as Tank Fei for her, and using her for some random teams is not that bad either, as well as if you don't have a Pyro DPS in general and you're maybe waiting for Arlecchino or something, she could be something to kind of just waste the time with, to have fun with, until you get Arlecchino or maybe a different character in the future. And then Barbara in general, at first wasn't really a huge help, especially with we already get her for free, and so the constellations were kind of meh. I think that, like Riff said, going for Burgeon or Bloom or whatever, she's opened up a lot more possibilities that make her a lot more useful. So taking all those things into mind, I think that both these all 3 of these characters are pretty good, and I think the banners in general look pretty good, and I think in general, probably my personal opinion, it looks way better than what we had on the last banner. But that's everything we've got for this week, and that's everything we have. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys go ahead and like and subscribe, and go ahead and check out our Discord as well. We thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.